de mi corazón.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what's happening in Washington, D.C.? Is it actually panic in D.C.? We often say panic in D.C. Is it actual panic in D.C.? Yes, it is. Because the goal of the cultural communists and cultural Marxists are, as we often talk about here, to ignore the working class who needs those people. They're dirty. They're yucky. They're you and me. We actually go to work for a living. Screw them. Let's control the people who don't actually work for a living, the people that we already have control of. The people in Hollywood, the publicists, the PR teams, the people that push Dylan Mulvaney and Bud Light cans. Let's go and use control of the education systems and the systems of entertainment. Let's go capture the legal profession. Let's use that to then press down on society the actual worldview of Marxism that we wish to ascertain and that we wish to, of course, force and foist upon this free nation. And so that is precisely what happened over the course of the last couple of years. You couldn't hear anything about Joe Biden and his corruption in Ukraine. We were just supposed to go along with the narrative that Russia's bad, Russia rigged the election in 2016, and now we must go to war with Russia so that we can split up Russia into a bunch of different nations after we either stage a nuclear psyop or push them so far that that Vladimir Putin uses a nuclear weapon, and then we can use it as a precursor for all NATO countries to invade Russia and break it up, which is the bloodthirsty end goal of these people that brought you the Vietnam War, the Iraq War, the Afghanistan War, and every American foreign policy failure in between. Okay? Throw the Bay of Pigs in there. These dumb think that they're going to trick us once more into assuming that they have the sides of the angels at their backs. And they don't. They're evil. And they've been keeping this from you. And by and large, Fox News, which is a vestige of corporate media, has been, of course, like tiptoeing through the tulips on this issue until Fox News has finally realized that either they're failing ratings or the failing disaster, which was the GOP debate last week, which, again, we broadcast to you along with Tucker Carlson's interview of Trump, and it was just bombshell, amazing evening, record viewership left and right. I saw a number that they only had 12 million people tuning in. Oh man, that's not good. Only 12 million people is tuning in to the debate. Well, anyway, Fox News has finally had a fire lit under their and they are going to now report real news, and they did that this weekend with Viktor Shokin. Viktor Shokin is a man inside of our very handy diagram that we will put up for you here. Viktor Shokin is a man who is directly a part of the Joe Biden criminal scheme to defraud the American public. Joe Biden is a traitor. He's a traitorous individual. He's a traitor to our nation. He sold out our country. Viktor Shokin's here on our helpful little diagram that we have created for you. Burisma pays the Bidens in order to withhold aid, in order to force out the prosecutor who was looking into Burisma corruption. Only 12 million people watched the first GOP debate. Goodness gracious. You know, it was like 25, 30, 40 million people watching like the debates when Donald Trump is in them. Just a reminder that like our party with Donald Trump out of it is a very, very different landscape. A very benign, ball gag, neutered, simp landscape for our Republican Party. We should be thankful, even if you're not the biggest Trump fan, we should be thankful for what Trump does to move the window back to us, back to populism. All right? Hence why we have the brand new Donald Trump mugshot asset, I suppose, in our studio. You can see there. Donald Trump. This is a physical, practical asset that we had made with a parental advisory sticker and pinned it to the wall. So there we go. Viktor Shokin is the man who was investigating the Bidens, investigating Burisma. The Bidens were, of course, contracted then by Burisma to get him fired. The Bidens then weaponized their power over the Ukrainian government as a vassal state of our American State Department. In order to do that, Viktor Shokin's the man who knows where all the bodies are buried. And Viktor Shokin, that man, did his first interview with corporate media. Huge shout out to One American News that got Viktor Shokin on the record earlier, like years earlier. But Viktor Shokin, nonetheless, spoke with Fox News this weekend. It didn't go great for Joe Biden. You finally have real panic in D.C. Viktor Shokin, why were you fired from your position as a prosecutor? Have a listen.
Why were you fired from your position by President Poroshenko?
I have said repeatedly in my previous interviews that Poroshenko fired me at the insistence of the then Vice President Biden because I was investigating Burisma.
So did President Poroshenko tell you that he wanted you to stay on the job, but there was pressure from Vice President Biden?
You understood me correctly. This is how it was. There were no complaints whatsoever, no problems with how I was performing at my job. But because pressure was repeatedly put on President Poroshenko, that is what ended up in him firing me.
So he said that he was fired effectively by Joe Biden. That Joe Biden, as Joe Biden bragged about, fired him based on holding up aid to Ukraine so that his kid could go and make millions. Now, again, we want to be super clear here about what's going on. This is about Joe Biden making millions. Joe Biden is using his... Hunter Biden is not the bad guy. This is going to be clipped and taken out of context. I don't care. Hunter Biden is not the bad guy. Joe Biden is the bad guy. Joe Biden is the cretinous father who used his derelict son, who had so many... The guy needs like a professional exorcist from inside of the bowels of the Roman Catholic Church to spray him with holy water from a fire hose. Hunter Biden is a demonic, sad, degenerate loser addicted to cheating, to prostitution, to every drug known to man. Every single father worth a stitch would have said, you, young man, belong inside of a rehabilitation home. I'll pay for your rehabilitation home. Wouldn't you do that? Maybe you have a kid that has demons, let's just say, that's struggling. What type of parent puts that child inside of a system that's going to accelerate their degeneracy and their collapse? An evil parent. A parent who used their child when they were in a car accident that led to the death of their wife as a political prop, for instance. Joe Biden is the bad man here. There's too much focus on Hunter Biden. It's Joe Biden who's using his kid as a cutout in these scenarios. This is the image of Hunter Biden laying prostrate in a bed because he was just in a fatal car accident that killed his mom and his sister. And there's his sorry, I'm allowed one swear during the show. It makes my blood boil because I spent all weekend with my kids. I couldn't imagine doing this to my children. What a cretinous man. There's Joe Biden using his kids in the hospital beds as props. Joe Biden wheeled in a podium so that he could get campaign material, so that he could fill his coffers with sympathy. And he does this day and night and day. My kid died in Iraq. No, he didn't. Joe Biden goes to Maui. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry your children were incinerated because of an Obama Foundation guy couldn't give you water because water is we must revere the water. We must revere the water. So they couldn't give you water. Sorry we closed down the entries in and out of Lahaina in Maui. We locked you in. Sorry that you literally melted to ashes. Your children, you couldn't go get your children. We didn't sound the alarm. Sorry. Well, I'm sorry. But remember, ladies and gentlemen, one day, back in the 70s, Joe Biden said, I put a bag of Orville Redenbacher popcorn in my microwave, and it sparked once. And it gave me big scaries. I was scared. This man is such a cretinous, evil malevolent losers to stop the focus on Hunter Biden. We're going to stop the focus on Hunter Biden on the show. It is Joe Biden using Hunter Biden as a cutout. Joe Biden used his son and used his son's vices in order to get himself rich. Because Joe Biden needed a guy with the last name Biden. That's what it was. And he put his son in front of funnels of unaccountable money, cash, dirty money from all around the world, and then used him as a vessel. That's why the story matters, because it always lands back at Joe Biden. Viktor Shokin has now confirmed that. Joe Biden, of course, as evil always does since the time of Babylon, evil must always brag about its conquests. Joe Biden did so, bragging about getting Viktor Shokin fired. Here's what Viktor Shokin has to say about that.
What are your thoughts when you saw the tape of Vice President Biden speaking to the Council on Foreign Relations, saying you had 6 hours to fire you or you're not going to get the $1 billion?
Not only the position of President Poroshenko, the office of President Poroshenko was humiliated, but the entire country of the Ukraine was humiliated. And I developed a very firm understanding of the fact that the vice president was only acting in his own interests. He, generally speaking, handled Ukraine like it was his own backyard. He would put people that were suitable for him. He would arrange for them to be put in certain positions.
Ladies and gentlemen, sorry for getting so keyed up. I get so upset when I hear about these stories, because what this is clearly Joe Biden abusing his children. Joe Biden has a history of abusing his children, abusing them. Ashley Biden's diary, that is confirmed authentic via Ashley Biden herself. Straight up, why did my dad get into the shower with me? These are questions. What has that done? What has that done to damage me? The images, we don't even need to see Ashley Biden's diary. The images of Joe Biden's children in hospital beds and Joe Biden using them as political props. So all you need to see. This man is such a sick individual. Dust off your Bibles. Yep. Because the true fate of the nation rests upon the morality of our leaders. It always has. And our nation will be judged based on the morality of our leaders. And so we must pray now. Truly, we must pray. Why did Joe Biden go after Burisma? Well, Viktor Shokin had something to say about that. Listen.
Why were you looking into Burisma?
The reason I oversaw the Burisma case was because I was the prosecutor general. Burisma was an ordinary case. There wasn't anything particularly different about it. The reason that I was handling it was because it deserved a special mention. It was on a list of cases to merit special attention, because Hunter Biden was involved with Burisma, and of course his father, the vice president, Biden at the time, oversaw Ukraine affairs for the White House. This is why.
Understood. Do you believe they were up to no good? Were they up to doing something corrupt with Burisma? Was the company of Burisma corrupt, as been alleged, which since has been disbanded?
I have no doubt that there were illegal activities engaged in by Burisma. As a matter of fact, the criminal case had been started before me. It continued to expand. And Zlochevsky, who at the time held the post of minister and was the founder and CEO of Burisma, started bringing in people who could provide protection for him. Hunter Biden was among them. And the corruption network expanded as a result. So, yes, to answer your question, there's no doubt in my mind that Burisma was engaged in illegal activities.
So, did you just hear that? Viktor Shokin saying the corruption actually expanded due to the Bidens. That the Bidens were brought in to expand the corruption, not to keep it from happening, as Joe Biden went down to the well of the Ukrainian parliament and gave some mewling speech about Oh, we need to stop corruption in Ukraine, Joe Biden said. Could you imagine being a Ukrainian member of parliament and listening to that, knowing full well that Joe Biden is fleecing, strip mining your country? Joe Biden is the corrupt vassal that is coming, and a usurper coming to your nation and stealing from your coffers. Oh, the degeneracy. We have the clip, it's buried somewhere, of Joe Biden when he was brought to Ukraine in order to cement this crime syndicate in Burisma, had the bloody cheek to go to the Ukrainian parliament and give some mewling speech about corruption. Oh, come on. Oh, the banality of evil. That's what you're talking about here. The banality of evil. It must look in your face. It must spit in your face. Oh, I'm so glad that we are fighting against this. It feels good to be on the side of righteousness. It truly does. Devin Archer, of course, no honor among thieves. Devin Archer has come out against the Biden family in multiple bombshell testimony, interviews with Tucker Carlson and so forth. Devin Archer said effectively that Shokin was a threat to the Biden crime syndicate relationship with Burisma. Shokin on that commentary.
Devin Archer said you were a threat to Burisma. Do you agree?
Да, согласен.
Yes, I agree.
Why? Because you were going to find out what they were up to?
Because he understood, and so did Vice President Biden, that had I continued to oversee the Burisma investigation, we would have found the facts about the corrupt activities that they were engaging in, that included both Hunter Biden and Devin Archer and others.
Okay, so were the Bidens bribed? This is the big one. Did the Bidens accept a bribe, which we have detailed a $10 million bribe? Apparently there are audio recordings of this bribe being done. There's, of course, an FD 1023 from the FBI, from a whistleblower. The Bidens were bribed. So, Shokin, did it happen? They were bribed to get you fired. Have a listen.
Earlier.
Do you believe that Joe Biden or Hunter Biden got bribes?
I do not want to deal in unproven facts, but my firm personal conviction is that, yes, this was the case. They were being bribed. The fact that Joe Biden gave away $1 billion in U.S. money in exchange for my dismissal, my firing, isn't that alone a case of corruption?
Yeah, that's right. You don't even need to see the bank accounts, even though you've already seen the bank accounts, but they ran them through Malta, right? They went through this Maltese bank account. They did it. The Ukrainian prosecutor saying, the Ukrainian head of Burisma saying effectively, it'll take 10 years to untangle what we've done with the Bidens, right? Well, it's coming apart. And more importantly, the Biden regime is coming apart as these types of bombshells continue to drop. Now, we get into the real dangerous stuff. One, was Shokin a victim of an attempted assassination by our deep state in order to hide this? And more importantly, did Biden's actions directly lead to war in Ukraine? You have to see this in the bloodthirsty geopolitical angling that our deep state is using Ukraine as an agitator for regime change in Russia. Now, regime change has gone great in Fidel Castro's Cuba. Regime change has gone great in communist Vietnam. Went great in Korea. Regime change did awesome in Iraq and Afghanistan. Totally great. Really fantastic. And all of our little adventurisms in South America, totally awesome. South America totally isn't a Marxist hellhole. We don't have a southern border crisis now because of what we did to meddle in South America at all. So yeah, America's done great on regime change. Really, we have an incredible track record. You must understand, that is the goal in Russia. I mean, I cannot tell you where I'm getting this, but this is like high-level sourcing from people who know so much about what's going on right now inside of NATO. Friends that I have, associates that that understand what the end result goal is here know this, that for the better part of the last 20 years, the end result goal of these neocons who do not live in the real world, who foment who foment foreign policy disaster and American adventurism and war around the planet. These people who love that kind of stuff, not because your sons and daughters get sent off to die in some hellhole in the middle of the desert, but because their budgets increase and the Constitution gets worn thin with these adventurist wars. They are bloodthirsty, dead set on creating war with Russia. They want war with Russia. They want a nuclear disaster. They want a precursor to do a full-scale NATO invasion of Russia and to split up Russia into a bunch of different nations. That's the goal. The end result here. Their prayer is that Ukraine gets just absolutely demolished, that there's a nuclear disaster in Ukraine. That's what they're hoping for. They're living for it. Because then that would mean they can launch a full-scale invasion of Russia. That's what they want. These people are psychotic. They're suicidal. The people who brought you Afghanistan and Iraq and Vietnam, these same people, Henry Kissinger's still alive somehow. The architect of the Vietnam War is still here, wobbling around. They know what's coming. That's what they want. And they've been using Ukraine, again, as an agitator for this for the better part of 2 decades. Ukraine was always going to be how they kicked the door in. And Viktor Shokin is saying straight up that Joe Biden's the reason that they lost Crimea. Joe Biden's the reason that things went south so quickly for Ukraine. Now you have 500,000 people who've died in the Ukraine-Russia war. So they're sending the flower of Ukraine off to the slaughter, shoving them through the meat grinder, World War I style, because of the Bidens. Have a listen.
Has this damaged America's reputation in Ukraine?
There is no doubt that his actions have damaged the U.S. reputation in Ukraine. It is public knowledge. Everybody knows that it was because of Joe Biden's actions that Russia was able to claim Crimea without firing a single shot, which, of course, eventually led to a full-scale war that is currently underway. And I do talk about this in my book.
So Joe Biden brought you the first war in Russia. This was the Crimea War, where Russia went in and seized a massive part of what was Ukraine, right? And Russia went in there during the Obama administration and crossed their red lines. So at what point do you look at this? Do you look at Joe Biden, who is an empty vessel, who is simply a simp for the deep state? Joe Biden is simply an agitator for the deep state. He does what they say. He always has, always will. This is why Joe Biden gets a get a jail free card for his son, because Joe Biden has been a useful vessel in fomenting war. We are like, there's something, I think it was Truman who said there's something truly dark, truly evil going on inside of our black box agencies that have no oversight, no insight into how they're spending their money. What kind of a country would we have if we didn't have a CIA? These people are Satanists. These people are truly demonic. They're evil. They don't represent you or me. They're antithetical to what we perceive as Americans. They clothe themselves in sheaths of fake love of this country and adherence to our democratic principles. They are the opposite. These people are truly evil. And that's the reckoning that we must face in this country. It's not about Biden. And it's not about Trump. And those people aren't coming to save you. Like, again, like there's no single entity that's like coming to save us. Like, it's about us inside of our hearts, like where we stand morally and where we stand righteously with our God. God says that, hey, listen, I'll save Sodom and Gomorrah if you can find me one righteous person. So you have to look within yourself. And you have to look at your relationship with the creator of the universe to save us. That's where we will be saved. That's where our salvation will come from. Not from an individual or an entity, the military or the police. No. Because all those things can and have been usurped And so much to such an evil end that this prosecutor saying that our own intelligence agencies tried to murder him to protect the Bidens. Are they capable of doing murder? Well, ask yourself this. Who has the power to turn off the cameras inside of a federal penal system? Inside of federal prison, who has the power to flip the switch? That's the question. When you ask that question, you'll realize the evil that we truly fight. Talking about Epstein, of course. Why were the cameras shut off? Who has the power to shut off the cameras inside of a federal prison? There's your evil in society, ladies and gentlemen. There's your oligarchy. And that's what we're truly fighting. That's the nature of evil versus good, dark versus light. It's not about Biden. It's not about Trump. And it's not even about this nation in particular. It's about true spiritual warfare. That's what we're up against. Are you on the side of people that would be willing to murder someone because they're politically inconvenient? That's what you're watching with Trump, a slow motion assassination process. Viktor Shokin says that they tried to kill me too. Watch.
Definitely. I have long been concerned about my personal safety and security. I've already died technically twice as I was poisoned with mercury.
So he said this before, Viktor Shokin, that he went on a trip and he was poisoned with mercury, of course, something that doesn't happen at random, something that, of course, would happen because somebody injected his food with a poisonous substance that is tasteless, and then he nearly died. I wonder who that could be. I wonder. Could it be the person sending untold billions to Ukraine right now? I wonder who would be motivated to get Viktor Shokin up and off this earth so that he couldn't do interviews like that. Well, Kevin McCarthy watched that interview and had a response saying effectively what we know. This is, again, why we thank the Benny Brigade for supporting us, because we have the capacity on the show to reach into the depth of knowledge inside of our political system and to pull out the facts and the information before you hear it on other news sites. And we had these conversations over the last couple of weeks with members of Congress. And we told you, we ran back to this camera and we told you it's coming. They will impeach Joe Biden. They will start an impeachment inquiry as soon as they're back. Kevin McCarthy's for it. They have the votes. They will impeach the man for this. And this is how it's going to roll out. Jim Jordan's going to start the impeachment inquiry. They're going to present ironclad to the American public what Joe Biden did. They have some bombshell witnesses that we don't know about just yet. They might even have the tapes of Joe Biden doing these calls. They will have him dead to rights, and then they will impeach him around Christmas, after Christmas, when they come back in January. Take it to the bank. Kevin McCarthy proving that we were right and that you knew the news before the news broke. Watch.
Will you bring an impeachment inquiry against President Biden this September?
Well, Maria, first you've got to understand, only because Republicans took the majority have we found out what President Biden told us when he was running for office is not true. He said he never had any dealings with his son's business, and that he never even talked to him. We've now found out not only did he call into the meetings, he went to dinner, and after the dinner, Hunter Biden got a new Porsche, that there was $3.5 million transferred. We now found out as he was a sitting vice president, the family created 20 shell companies. Now the special prosecutor, David Weiss, actually let the statute of limitations run out on Hunter Biden's taxes. We found that the FBI actually informed Hunter Biden and the inaugural committee prior to our ability to go and interview him. We also have a DOJ that tried to give a sweetheart deal to Hunter Biden, and the judge said no. So if you look at all the information we've been able to gather so far, it is a natural step forward that you would have to go to an impeachment inquiry.
A natural step forward that you have to go to an impeachment inquiry. What did we tell you? Get ready. I think it's 1 week. Congress is back. Jim Jordan's going to come in. He's going to slap down the flag onto the playing field. He's going to stab that thing right into the turf, and he's going to say, yo, impeachment inquiry now. And then you're going to have these hearings. They're going to be bombshell wall to wall. They got no more Trump indictments lined up. They got nothing. Apparently Trump's trial, while we're live here, there's a little bit of breaking news. Trump's trial has been set. in Washington, D.C. for March 4th, 2024. So right in the middle of the presidential election. Oh, my. Oh, my. Buckle up, baby. Buckle up. This is going to be the fight for our lives.